Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Against the Odds. So last week for our Against Odds poll, we had 5 different artifact options, and in the end, it was the closest Against the Odds poll I think there has ever been. So check out these standings. Darksteel Reactor came in first, and we're playing Reactor today in a super sweet deck, had 1,295 votes. Throne of Empires ended up at 1,285, and Timesifter was at 1,251. So we had 3 different options, all within like 40 votes of each other. It was super crazy exciting, so maybe we'll get to some of those other options, Throne of Empires or Timesifter in the future, but this week, we are heading to Modern to play a deck built around Darksteel Reactor. I'm calling this one Reactor Beatdown, taking a really unique twist on Darksteel Reactor. So a quick reminder before we break down Reactor Beatdown for Modern. If you enjoy Against the Odds and the other series here on the channel, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So Darksteel Reactor, our namesake card, is interesting. It's 4 mana, it's indestructible, it's beginning your upkeep, you put a charge counter on it, and then when it has 20 or more counters on it, you win the game. So that is kind of the gimmick of Darksteel Reactor. You gotta get 20 counters. So Darksteel Reactor, obviously, the big calling card is the you win the game mode. So I started off trying to build around that ability. Some proliferate effects, some ways to kind of stall out the game, and snaring bridges. I tried to avoid the Blood Moon plan, so we don't lean on that too often. But that was my initial idea with Darksteel Reactor, was Darksteel Reactor Prison. If we can stay alive for 20 straight turns, maybe take some extra turns with Panoptic Mirror, getting an extra turn spell on it, use War of Invention to hold it together, then we can just win the game with Darksteel Reactor getting 20 counters. So that was my initial attempt at Darksteel Reactor, and it was pretty horrible. It was not good. It was not even very entertaining. We were just trying to lock our opponent out of the game. So after a couple matches of that, I was like, all right, this isn't working. We're going back to the drawing board. What else can you do with Darksteel Reactor? And then suddenly it struck me. Darksteel Reactor is an indestructible artifact, and there's actually a bunch more indestructible artifacts. All of them Darksteel. We're actually like Darksteel Tribal. So we have Darksteel Citadels, we have Darksteel Axe, a +2/+0 equipment that's indestructible, Darksteel Pendant, an artifact that lets you pay 1 and tap it to scry that's indestructible, Darksteel Ingot, a 3-mana ramp spell that's also indestructible. So instead of trying to get counters on our Darksteel Reactor and slowing down the game for turns and turns and turns and turns, we're doing the exact opposite. It's hard to believe that this is possible, but we are Darksteel Reactor aggro. We are trying to beat down by playing Darksteel Reactor and the rest of its Darksteel friends in conjunction with ways of turning our indestructible artifacts like Darksteel Reactor into a 5/5 indestructible creature. So we have Install Artifact. If we can stick that on our Darksteel Reactor, it's a 5/5 indestructible, beat our opponent down, doesn't care about Fatal Push, doesn't care about Lightning Bolt. The only thing that really gets it is Path to Exile, doesn't care about Wrath. So we just make it into a 5/5 and start beating our opponent down. Tezzeret's Touch, same thing as in Soul Artifact, except we pay 1 black mana for the ability to get our artifact back if it happens to die. Doesn't happen very often because it's really hard to kill indestructible things in Modern. There's not a whole lot based around beating that. Even like Damnation that says things can't be regenerated, doesn't care about indestructible. And then at the top end, we have Tezzeret, Agent of Bolus, which can help us find our Darksteel Reactor, our other indestructible artifacts, or it can turn multiple artifacts into 5/5s, which are all indestructible thanks to the Darksteel Reactor plan of having so many indestructible artifacts with the -1 ability. So turn 1, make a Darksteel Reactor into a 5/5. Next turn, after blocking our opponent's creature with our Darksteel Reactor, turn another Darksteel artifact into a 5/5, and eventually just beat our opponent down with indestructible 5/5. So that's the deck. We're not trying to get 20 counters on Reactor, although, I mean, it can happen. Like, if things get really weird somehow and the game stalls out for turns and turns and turns, the counters do slowly add up. I mean, it seems unlikely, but you never know. It is like a very fringe upside of Darksteel Reactor, but the main plan is to scissor it up, or Tezzeret's Touch it up, or Tezzeret Agent of Bolus it up, and just get aggressive with Darksteel Darksteel Reactor as a 5/5 indestructible. The rest of the deck, we got a bit of removal, Fatal Push for the early game, 1 Dismember, and then some discard to give us something to do on turn 1. If you look at our plays, we don't have much going on turn 1. We do have Darksteel Axe as a 1-drop, but mostly we're looking to start really doing things turn 2, turn 3, so that leaves turn 1 for us to pick an answer out of our opponent's hand. If they have a Path to Exile, that would disrupt our indestructible plan, a Liliana the Veil, things like that, or a combo piece that might be able to race us. So that's the main deck. As far as the mana base, we get a bunch of fetches to go with some basic lands. Fetch is important to make our Fatal Pushes as good as possible. Watery Graves, Dark Slick Shores, and 1 Academy Ruins. So our artifacts don't die much, but they do get hit by discard. So we can use Academy Ruins to get back a Darksteel Reactor, Darksteel Pendant, a Darksteel Axe that our opponent hit with discard earlier in the game, and then turn it into a 5/5 with Tezzeret or any of our other pieces. As far as the sideboard, the sweetest part is Damnation and Bantu's Last Reckoning. So since all of our stuff is indestructible, our only creatures, we actually have 0 literal creatures, but the things we turn into creatures, all of our Darksteel stuff is indestructible. That means we turn all of our Damnations, Bantu's Last Reckonings into one-sided Wraths, and it actually lets us win a lot of games. If the board gets gummed up, maybe we got a 5/5 indestructible or 2, we Bantu's Last Reckoning, immediately attack for 10, untap, attack for 10 more with our indestructible stuff, close out the game super quick. So great sideboard cards against go-wide decks, creature decks. Collective Brutality is kind of a sweet catch-all. It lets us hit our opponent with the Duress, also kills Dark Confidants and Elves and Goblin Guides and all this early game stuff. Stubborn Denial is super awesome in this deck. It is such a great counter spell. Comes in against combo decks or against answers to our plan if there's Path to Exiles, things like that. But it's so good because it's basically just a 1-mana negate. If we have any of our artifacts turned into creatures with Tezzeret, with Ensoul Artifact, with Tezzeret's Touch, it's automatically ferocious. It's really hard for our opponent to deal with the ferocious creature since they're indestructible. So then Stubborn Denial is just a 1-mana negate against Storm, against Ad Nauseam, any of those spell-based combo decks, super, super strong there. Then we have some more artifacts. These cards kind of do double duty, so Gravedigger's Cage Relic for graveyard decks, Pithing Needle, kind of a catch-all. The other thing with these is we can turn them into 5/5s. They're not indestructible, but even just a 5/5 Gravedigger's Cage, maybe on turn 2 we can turn 1 Gravedigger's Cage, turn 2 Ensoul Artifact, start beating for 5, even not indestructible. That's still a pretty reasonable clock. Yes, it dies to a lot more, Fatal Pushes, terminates, all that stuff, but it's still a nice little upside that we have these hate cards in our sideboard that can also be big 5/5 beaters. And that is Darksteel Reactor Beatdown for Modern, and that's our Against the Odds deck for this week. So is this deck gonna work? I don't know. It seems like we could do some pretty powerful things. The thing is, it's just so odd. We are an all-in aggressive deck. We're planning on being super aggressive that has 0 creatures. That's already super weird. We have a lot of disjointed pieces. Like, our plan works really well together, but there is a risk that we draw all Darksteel pieces and no way to turn them into creatures, and none of the Darksteel pieces are that great on their own. Darksteel Axe, it doesn't do anything. Darksteel Pendant, I guess scrying is semi-irrelevant. The ramp doesn't really help us from Ingot. Darksteel Reactor, sure, 20 turns from now it's good, but it's pretty slow. So we do need to draw some number of both pieces of our deck. But, I mean, it seems like indestructible 5/5s can steal some games, so we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that we get at least some wins with it, because it seems like a really cool idea. No creature, all in Darksteel Tribal Reactor Beatdown aggro for Modern. So, anyway, let's see what happens. Let's get to the gameplay videos. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the gameplay videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, take a second and click that like button down below. It's a great way to help support the channel for free. And you can find the next video in the playlist right here.